I am going to evaluate the overall effectiveness and success of my performance. The first physical weakness that I noticed about myself was cardiovascular endurance. I was able to identify this as my main weakness because throughout the game I would find myself not reaching the rucks I was meant to, not being able to support my team, possibly limiting the chances of scoring. This increases the risk of the opposition team stealing the ball and makes my team more vulnerable to actually lose. Having poor CV endurance could be explained by not having enough slow oxidative muscle fibres. These fibres have a high capillary density and a high aerobic capacity, which means they're able to resist fatigue and delay the onset of obla. Having poor CV endurance means I am able to feel the effects of lactic acid sooner, which will in turn reduce my effectiveness on the field. The larger amount of lactic acid will also affect my recovery rate too. It means I will spend longer in the slow lactic acid component of recovery, as I have a larger volume of lactic acid to remove and requires more glycogen to replenish. Improving my CV endurance will help me in a sport aspect, as it will decrease the resting and submaximal frequency of breathing, reducing the onset of fatigue. However, it will also help generally in my life. Improving it will reduce the levels of blood lipids, decreasing blood viscosity, and then that will decrease blood pressure and decreases body fat, which will reduce the risk of diseases such as atherosclerosis, heart attacks and strokes. A physical strength that I'm aware of is my actual explosive strength. This is the ability to produce maximal amount of force in one or a series of rapid muscular contractions. Good explosive strengths means I'm able to overcome a resistance rapidly. This resistance can be identified as inertia. Newton's first law of motion, the law of inertia, states that a body will remain at rest or constant velocity unless acted upon by an external or unbalanced force. Therefore, having good explosive strength means I'm able to generate a large amount of force to overcome this resistance and accelerate. This may be useful in a game scenario when we are in the defensive line. I'll be able to accelerate towards the attackers to apply more pressure and influence mistakes. Having good explosive strength may also help me in a game scenario during the scrum. Playing flanker allows me to be able to apply a large action force into the ground to receive an equal and opposite reaction force, Newton's law of reaction, to allow me to accelerate from the scrum towards the fly half to possibly again induce a mistake by the extra pressure. This provides my team with an advantage as it allows a chance for a turnover and or pushes the opposition down the field. The possible main reason for my efficient explosive strength could be that I have predominantly fast glycolytic muscle fibres. These have high phosphocreatine stores, low mitochondria content, and have a fast and large force of contraction. These fibres will work in conjunction with the EAPI system, and this will be the dominant system that works in these short bursts of exercises that are high intensity before the stores deplete. The benefit of having good explosive strength means that combined with my speed, it can result in good power. Having good power helps me in my game in all types of scenarios. Example, it will allow me to generate power in my rectus femoris, trapezius and latissimus dorsii when I perform a tackle. This leads me on to my technical strength, which is tackling, specifically the chop tackle. I'm able to perform the skill well, as numerous times people have acknowledged how effectively I can perform it and the efficiency of the skill to isolate an attacker. This is a strength of mine as I'm able to quickly flex my knees, which is a hinge joint, which is rotating around the transverse axis of rotation, by contracting my bicep femoris, one of the three hamstring muscles. I'll flex at the hip, which is a ball and socket joint, by the contraction of the iliopsoas, and then I wrap my arms around the attacker and drive through to bring them to the ground. Whilst crouching down, I'll be getting into a lower position, allowing me to be in more of a stable. This is because that the lower the centre of mass, then the greater stability. I will also be in a wide stance to increase the base of my support, thus increasing the surface area and again increasing my stability. All these elements prevent the attacker from fending me and maximises my chance on performing the tackle effectively. The use of my good power and explosive strengths means I can perform this skill quickly and effectively to again limit the chance of the attacker fending me off and beating me. However, a technical weakness of mine is the ability to offload. Technically, I'm not particularly bad at offloading, however my weakness is the awareness and deciding when to offload and when not to, which as a result can affect how efficiently I offload in a game. For example, there may be a scenario when I should offload in a game, however not having the awareness to visualise it, I would just go into contact. This could be a nuisance in a game as it could be the difference between my team scoring or not. To improve my awareness and further improve my ability, I will watch videos of role models like Sonny Bill Williams to understand the differences in offloading techniques and then go and practice in a varying open environment. Improving this will mean I'm able to draw in multiple defenders, creating space for my team, which will allow me to offload to them and allow them to beat the defensive line and possibly score. A mental weakness that I noticed about myself was my level of confidence. Sport confidence is the belief or degree of certainty individuals possess about their ability to be successful in sport. On occasion, I can have low sports confidence. This can have an impact on my performance negatively, as sometimes I won't be motivated to make firm decisions. Low confidence also sometimes can affect my self-esteem. Having low self-esteem means I may not feel good enough or valuable enough to contribute to the performance of my team. As a result, sometimes in a game I may be very introverted and rarely make decisions for the team. Self-efficacy has been identified as a specific sport confidence, and it's defined as the self-confidence we have in a specific scenario. Bandora's theory of self-efficacy states that self-efficacy was dependent on 4 types of information. Personal accomplishments, which is the success previously experienced. Vicarious experiences, when we watch others of similar ability succeed. And verbal persuasion, encouraged by a coach. And then finally, emotional arousal, which is our own perceptions of how aroused we are psychologically and physiologically. Then a mental strength that I identified was my motivation. I feel that I had quite a high level of motivation. And motivation simply is the internal mechanisms and external stimuli which arouse and direct our behaviour. And it's viewed in 2 different forms, intrinsic and extrinsic. Intrinsic motivation is a term used for internal drives to perform well, for example, satisfaction, enjoyment and pride, whereas extrinsic motivation are rewards such as trophies and prizes. These factors can be powerful in determining whether we learn a certain skill or not. I believe that motivation is a key aspect in sport, as my high levels of motivation may reflect onto others of my team who are less motivated and influence them. It means that my team are able to be motivated together and share a common interest to be motivated to win and have fun whilst performing at our best, which will enhance the group cohesion. Finally, a tactical weakness that I noticed as a result of this, as a result of having low levels of confidence, is my level of communication, which is quite poor. On a number of occasions, I could be seen in the game to be quite quiet. This is obviously a negative aspect, as it means sometimes I'm unlikely to listen or to help others if I'm succeeding in a particular skill. This could be explained by personality type. I'm slightly more of an introvert more than an extrovert, which is explained by the reticular activating system. The system explains that introverts have high levels of arousal naturally occurring within the brain, so tend to avoid any external stimulation. Therefore, meaning they're more likely to avoid these social scenarios and are likely to be shy. This therefore explains why sometimes I can be reluctant to voice my opinion in a game scenario. Another possible explanation is that I could be having poor extrinsic feedback. If I'm playing a game with people mainly older than me and make a mistake, I may feel sort of they're having a go at me, which as a result means I lose confidence and will try and keep quiet. Extrinsic feedback is a form of feedback from an external source. Therefore, if it's incorrect, then my performance will deteriorate and result in lower motivation. The action plan, I will be primarily focusing on improving my cardiovascular endurance. The training plan will consist of a 12-week mesocycle consisting of 4 3-week microcycles. These microcycles aim to achieve a short-term goal to build up to achieve our mid-term goal at the end of the mesocycle. If I had time to make a longer training program of macrocycle, we would aim towards a long-term goal, example, increasing the score on the bleep test by 3. Before I begin my action plan, I will set goals using the SMART principle. This identifies that an effective goal set is specific, meaning the goals must be clear, measurable, they must be assessed, achievable, they need to be reachable to increase motivation, however not too low to be demotivating, recorded so we can monitor progress, and then time phased, and so split into short-term goals to remain realistic. By hitting these goals will mean my motivation, confidence and persistence for a task will increase. Motivation is important because without it there is no reason for anyone to develop and improve. There will need to be a drive to learn and achieve success. This is developed into the drive theory. This suggests that drive reduces if the individual loses motivation, and this reduction is known as drive reduction. If an individual feels they are performing to the best of their ability, then their performance may well become habitual, and the performer sees no reason to be motivated. We will then, so the first week 1 to 4, beginning of the first week, I will test my CV endurance. That'll be done firstly performing the 12-minute Cooper run. This test consists of me continuously running a maximum distance in 12 minutes around a 400 metre track. I will do it, and then at the end of it my total distance will be recorded. Then I will do a second test, which will be the multi-stage fitness test. This test is a 20-metre shuttle run test at progressive intensities until exhaustion. Each 20 minutes will be timed to an audio cue, and the test will be over when I can't complete the shuttle in time. And then a level will be provided to me and recorded onto a table, and from these results I will be able to set myself a goal to improve towards for every 4 weeks, and a mid-term goal after the mesocycle. Before every training session I will begin with a warm-up, a pulse raising activity, i.e. a 5 to 10 minute gentle run on the treadmill at a speed of 6. And then there'll also be mobility exercises. This will just be stretching of the legs, the back, the shoulders, to prepare the body for exercise and prevents injury. Sessions must then end with a cool down. These are going to be pulse lowering activities, such as again a 5 to 10 minute on the cycling machine on a low resistance to prepare for rest and limit delayed onset muscle soreness. The first 4 weeks of the programme are going to be continuous training. For these weeks, the training will begin on a Tuesday. On this day I will aim for a minimum of 35 minutes of jogging on a treadmill, and this will be on a speed of 10 and an incline of 2. On the Wednesday I will do another 35 minutes, however it will be on the rowing machines on a resistance of 7. In the evening I will have rugby training for an hour and 30 minutes of the Wednesday. This training will involve some training of endurance, but will be primarily focused on improving and maintaining skill sets to improve motor skills. During these sessions I'll look to improve on my technical weakness of offloading. Being quite an open skill means it's dependent on the environment heavily and needs knowledge on perceptual requirements. Therefore I will use a varied practice type in training so I can come into contact with a wide span of experiences that will be stored in the long-term memory to modify my motor program. On the Thursday, I will have a rest day before the Friday. The Friday is going to be a weight session to maintain strength, specifically explosive. I'll spend around an hour in the gym doing exercises such as squats, deadlifts and shoulder press. These will all be done at 75 to 85% of my 1 rep max. I'll do between 6 to 10 reps for 4 to 6 sets within 3 to 5 minutes of recovery between each of these sets. And the key aspect of these exercises is to do them at speed to focus on the explosive strength. The Saturday will then be a rest day to allow the onset of DOMs and muscle recovery before Sunday, which will be a game day. And then finally Monday will then be another rest day. Each week we will progress the duration of the activity by 5 minutes and increase the intensity by increasing the speed and the incline on the treadmill by 1, or the resistance of the rower machine by 1. After these first 4 weeks, I will then retest myself doing the 12-minute Cooper run and the multi-stage fitness test. I'll record my results onto a table and compare them to the results before the action plan. I would hope to see that I ran further and for longer. However, if there was little or no progression, then I would know I'd have to change my action plan by either increasing the intensity or duration of my exercises. Between weeks 4 and 8, I'm going to use high intensity interval training. This is repeated bouts of high intensity work followed by a varied recovery times. On the days where I focused on CV before, I will use a treadmill and make it on an incline of 9 at a speed of 12 and perform 10 reps of 30-second sprints with 1 minute recovery between reps by just doing a gentle run. I will aim to do 2 sets of 10 reps with a longer rest of 3 minutes between each set. I will still continue to have Friday as a weight session and Sunday as game day. However, after week 6, I will increase the frequency of my CV endurance workouts to 3 sessions a week by replacing the rest day on Thursday to a training day. To progress my training, I will increase the number of sets I do by 1 each week. This will prevent any plateaus and reversibility. Again, at the end of the 8th week, I will test myself again at the start of the week and record my results. I would again expect to see further progress and much better scores compared to the beginning. Finally, between the last 8 to 12 weeks, I will do fartlek training. This translates to speed play and is a continuous steady state aerobic training interspersed with varied high intensity bouts and lower recovery periods. This allows both the aerobic and anaerobic systems to be stressed, encouraging recovery while still performing. On Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday, I will train by going onto hills and performing 7 1-minute hill reps and doing a light jog during recovery. Again, I'll still maintain Friday as my weight session and keep it an hour long. I haven't progressed these sessions in any way, as my explosive strength training is primarily just maintaining it rather than improving it. At the end of the training program, I will test myself for the final time. If I've hit my midterm goal, it may motivate me even more to keep training and set a long-term goal and train over a macro cycle to continually improve my CV endurance and performance. The training program I used was based on the principles of training to ensure I have the best improvements. The principles are specificity, progression, overload, including the components fit, variance, reversibility and moderation. In my plan, I'm specific in the fact that I have a clear understanding on what I aim to improve, and my training is based on that. Every week I progress my exercise either by a longer time or the speed it's performed at. This ensures that plateaus aren't reached and reversibility doesn't occur. I've shown variance in training by performing a range of exercises and type of training every 4 weeks, and changing the type of training every 4 weeks to prevent boredom, maintain motivation and limit any overuse injuries. Finally, I include the principle overload by manipulating the 4 components referred to as fit. This is the frequency, and I've done this by increasing the number of sessions after 6 weeks to 3. The intensity and time, I did this by increasing speed and the duration weekly. And finally type, which I did by using different types of training, i.e. on the hills, in the gym, fartlek training. During the training programme, I will also eat a lot of carbohydrates for more energy production. I will eat foods such as rice and potatoes that are stored as glycogen in the liver and muscles, which will be broken down during exercise to provide more energy. After a weight session and game day, I will also consume a high amount of protein. These will be foods such as eggs and meat and soya, and promotes growth and repair of muscle tissues. At the same time, I'll be on minimal foods that are high in saturated fatty acids, and instead eating foods with high unsaturated fatty acids such as avocado and soya beans, which can improve endurance and recovery rates as they contain twice the energy yield of carbohydrates. Following on from the training programme, we would expect to see adaptations to the respiratory system, cardiovascular system, musculoskeletal system, and the metabolic system. The respiratory system will have stronger respiratory muscles and increased surface area of alveoli. This increases breathing efficiency and increases the volume of oxygen that diffuses into the blood. Adaptations of the cardiovascular system will be cardiac hypertrophy primarily. This is an enlargement of the heart muscle, meaning an increase in stroke volume, and force of contraction, meaning lower resting heart rate. This will lower the risk of any heart diseases and strokes. Adaptations to the musculoskeletal system are examples such as slow oxidative muscle fibre hypertrophy, which increases the potential for aerobic energy production, meaning decreased energy cost that delays fatigue. Finally, I'd able to see a decrease in fat mass of the metabolic system, making it easy to perform exercise, which reduces onset of fatigue and therefore obla, so I can work at higher intensities and longer durations. Extra info I would like to add is that another way I could improve my weaknesses of the game is by simply playing more. Modern technology has allowed levels of participation to increase greatly. For example, the development of artificial fields and floodlights mean players are able to play rugby at any time of the year, day or night. This increase in access to facilities and the development of equipment means performers can train more effectively to enable higher levels of performance and minimise injury. The increase in facilities allows greater access for grassroots rugby, which will also have a positive impact on lives generally. People become more social, make more friends, be less stressed, and just generally feel happier towards themselves. Sport England continues to increase funding to local sport clubs in the surrounding areas to increase this participation, which in turn will lower the obesity rates in the country and put less of a stress on the NHS.